We've got 5 at the moment. We need 1 more to have a quorum, I believe. Oh, and now we have it.
We got quorum?
I think we do now, Elizabeth and Jay, so definitely do. Yeah.
All right.
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
Hey, Elizabeth.
How's it going, everyone?
Okay.
How
Other
are
than
you?
the Mets losing.
Oh, please.
Hello.
That was heartbreaking. All right, so I believe we can begin as we have a quorum and it is time. We need a volunteer for the minutes, and I think it's going to get easier because I think you can just take major points and we can refer others to the recording. I think I heard that was a thing that was happening.
I'm happy to do them tonight.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, Elizabeth.
So I'm happy to do them tonight.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. You don't have to, as I think Barbara has said on occasion, we're just taking the main things. It doesn't have to be he said, she said.
It should not be he said, she said.
It should not be.
I'm all good. Thanks.
Thanks.
Elizabeth, your voice is breaking up. I don't know.
Yeah, it is a little bit. Yeah.
I'm here. I'm taking the minutes. Hopefully you can hear that. I'll be largely quiet for this meeting, so hopefully no worries there.
Well, thank you so much again. We were hoping to have our representative from DOT with us this evening for some DOT updates. Some of the updates Howard will be able to give and some I will be able to give. But sorry, Howard, what was that?
I just said yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, some of these we won't have an answer on tonight. The first one was the Rotunda Reconstruction project at 79th Street. It's ongoing. There is a Rotunda email that was sent by Caitlin McGee, who is the project manager. We can share that with everybody. And apparently the work will be continuing through the fall. And likely they'll do what they can through the winter. But work is definitely continuing. This has affected bus service, obviously traffic, and other things. But we don't have a definitive start and end date to the various types of work they're going to be doing. And some of that is important for us to know. We will be in touch with Caitlin. She doesn't attend these meetings, unfortunately, but we will get an update from her and we will share it with everybody on the committee. Howard, you were in touch with Colleen. Did she give you any update on the 72nd Street bike lane at all?
No updates from Colleen at all.
May I ask you a question, please, regarding the Rotunda? We're interested, we're very interested in that whole project in the Parks Committee as well. So if you have any information, we have not gotten anything. We'd love to see it if you wouldn't mind forwarding it.
Yeah, I can forward it's like a newsletter that is sent out periodically and it covers the fall and into the winter. So I will send that to you and you can share it with your committee.
Thank you. That would be wonderful. Appreciate it.
Sure. Howard, you were saying about the bike lane? No update whatsoever, right?
No update. I have not heard anything from Colleen.
I don't know why we can't get an update on this. I mean, we've asked for this for quite a while now. It makes so much sense.
We have no updates on anything.
On anything from her.
Right.
On the next item, which was transit signal prioritization, we have asked DOT to adjust the signals at 73rd and Amsterdam and Broadway for the M57 and the M104, so they can go on their way much faster. 81st and Amsterdam for the M79 SBS, 87th and West End for the M86 SBS, 97th and West End for the M96, Broadway and 106th for the M60 SBS, 72nd and West End for the M72 and M57, 97th and Broadway for the M96, and 79th and Amsterdam for the M79 SBS. So far, DOT has not done one of these. And because of it, our buses are a little bit slower than they would otherwise be. Other neighborhoods have gotten TSP, and I don't know why they're not forwarding this for us. I really don't. But we will certainly keep pushing this. Those are locations where buses frequently get stuck.
Mhm.
Loading zones. Howard, you want to take this? Because we had an interesting borough president's meeting about ways to get deliveries enhanced and easier in every community. Why don't you
Yes.
take that?
Mark Levine convened a meeting of the co-chairs of the transportation committees of the various community boards of Manhattan to discuss impeded traffic due to an astronomical increase in the amount of deliveries due to e-commerce and for a variety of things. And we talked about it, and there's discussion of allowing some deliveries to be made in garages. They thought there were some garages that had space to allow for these deliveries. I'm not so sure about that. But in any event, every city, this is not rocket science, every city has figured this out. Loading zones. There needs to be space for these companies to legally do their business, deliver their goods, unload their goods, and the city can charge for this. And for some reason, New York City seems to be unable to do this. We called for loading zones 4 years ago. It's an obvious solution to this problem. I often drive on Columbus Avenue. It's down to one lane. This is a major problem. Again, it's not rocket science. I literally don't get it at this point.
Columbus is down to one lane, and it's 12-foot wide lanes originally, and then the bike lane was put in. Amsterdam is and still is 10-foot wide lanes, and it's often down to one moving lane. And
Right, I just am more familiar with Columbus.
No,
It's really
we
a
told-
problem.
We told DOT, if somebody's making a delivery on the west side of Amsterdam and there's a loading zone on the east side, they're not going to do it and walk it across. They're going to double park on the west side. And yes, that's what's happening.
It's very frustrating. And unfortunately, Colleen is not here to explain what the DOT is doing or offer advice as to how we can help the DOT improve the situation. Again, almost every other city, I was in Philadelphia recently, which every other parking spot was a loading zone. I literally don't understand what's going on, and it's not for lack of trying.
And the borough president is definitely on board with this now from the sound of that discussion we had the other day. So hopefully we'll get some forward action.
Maybe at some point.
Yeah. We were also looking to find out about the 96th Street and West End Avenue traffic calming measures. Yes, there are some painted things in the street, but we asked them to put something physical there, whether it was a planter or bollards or something, and we're still awaiting an answer on that as well. That takes on extra importance now with 79th and Riverside and Henry Hudson Parkway, under construction. Everyone's using the 96th and 95th Street, and so that's really important. And now with 24-hour speed cams, we absolutely believe the one at 96th and West End ought to be, re-energized. It was turned off a long time ago. And that's a perfect location for one of these things. And I think we should be sending a letter to DOT recommending that it be turned on again or a new one be placed there.
Andrew,
No
we
one-
have two hands up. Do you want to?
Okay, sure, take them.
First, Susan, and then Doug, please.
Thanks, guys. Sorry about my raspy voice. I got a little bit of a cold here. Don't want to point fingers, but it's from my husband. At any rate, just curious, what, if anything, the Transportation Committee is doing about the west side, the I don't know what's called, the cold head, the drive inside Central Park at 64th Street. Apparently, Gail Brewer's written a letter about that. There's great concern that the community wants to have a raised a bump so that the cyclists are stopped. It's a dangerous spot, and people are really upset about it. And I think that they've actually filed a lawsuit about it now. Just kind of curious if anything's been done on it.
Oh yeah, we've asked the Central Park Conservancy and the DOT to rethink the 6 Mile Loop in Central Park. It's set up for cars. There are no more cars. It's set up for it's set up for car traffic. It's a total anachronism. They don't seem to have any. They seem to have as much interest in that as the DOT has in loading zones. I don't know what's happening with that. All I know is we've called for them to rethink that, to increase pedestrian safety, and we've had no response whatsoever.
You know, Howard, with all due respect, I know that there are no longer passenger cars there, but there are lots of vehicles, so the traffic lights make sense. And
exactly, that's why we asked them to rethink it. Given that there are no more cars there are just cyclists, and there seem to be a lot of like e-vehicles there, and there are a lot of pedestrians there. They need to rethink what's going on there.
Can I just finish what I was saying?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, thanks. You know, so there are a lot of parks vehicles that are in the park driving around, like just a lot of vehicles. And so I think that's a really big project for them to take on. And this particular intersection, because of the number of schools right there and the kids coming into the park to play at the Heckscher ball fields, it's a serious matter. So I just was wondering if that one particular part had come across your radar. I met a guy.
No, we've asked for them to look at the whole loop.
Okay,
which includes that park, but we did not.
Excuse me, have you guys looked at that particular spot?
No, not that particular spot. Again, if we've asked them to look at it, and again, no response.
I just wanted to make sure the Transportation Committee was aware that there's a lawsuit now being brought by a group of citizens, and they've got Gail Brewer's support on this.
Who brought the lawsuit, Susan? Exactly.
I knew you were going to ask that. It was filed September 26th. The case number is 22 CV 08210. It's in the Federal District Court for the Southern District of New York, alleging that the city violates the Americans with Disabilities Act by failing to control the vehicular traffic in these crosswalks. They're asking the court to impose a remedial plan on the city. So there's they had a petition with over 1,200 people who signed it. It's a pretty serious thing. It's really scary. Anyway, I just want to make sure you guys knew about it, because I was in the park one day, as I often am, and there was a man there who was pretty exercised about it. I think you perhaps know him. He probably has been to transportation. I suggest come to transportation.
I agree.
If you want to.
That crosswalk is not unique. There are 50 some odd crosswalks like that along the 6 Mile Loop, and we've not gotten any response from the Central Park.
I'm sorry to interrupt. What makes that one somewhat unique, though, is that the Heckscher ball fields are right inside the park, right there, and there are a number of schools and young children who are crossing to get to the ball fields, and so it's terrifying to watch it. That's all.
There are a lot of young children on the east side as well, where there are those pocket parks, which a lot of young children go. In the southern part of the park, there are a lot of young children. In any event, they should be proactive to make that loop safer. They haven't done anything since cars were in there. We've called on them to do something, and we've had radio silence from them since. It's a problem. I totally agree.
Thanks.
Doug.
Thanks for bringing it up, because when we press them again, we'll make sure we mention that location.
Yeah, so I just, well, let me just say it's a bummer at the very least that we don't have updates from the DOT on a lot of these items. And I'm wondering if we can kind of bring this up at the next district cabinet service meeting if she's there, and or writing a letter with bullet points on asking for updates, and having our district management office follow up as well.
That's a fine idea.
You know,
Good
just
idea.
a very friendly ping. You know, we are awaiting these. You know, be nice and respectful. We appreciate Colleen. You know, her time. Was she did she just no show tonight, or was she? Did she?
No, she's getting an award from some organization tonight. So
well,
we
that's
understand.
Okay, well, that's a
but
big.
we didn't learn about that till really late, unfortunately.
Okay, so that's a a good excuse. That's
Yes, we'll excuse her for this one.
okay. All right. Thanks. All right. Thanks.
Ken, I think you're next.
Yeah, thanks. Just back to Central Park for a second. I understand that the Conservancy or the DPR, one or the other or both, have contracted with Sam Schwartz's company to rethink the loop road. So I assume that work is underway. And also that since the terrible death of Jill Tarlov at that intersection 6 or 8 years ago, the Parks Department did put in, or DOT, I guess it was, put in barriers. And so there are a couple of maybe 3 or 4 intersections that have barriers sticking out into the loop road and yield signs, which I think are very helpful and certainly would have saved Jill Tarlov's life. Because I'm very familiar with the circumstances of her death. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that.
Thank you, Ken. Jay?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Susan if you have that citation of the lawsuit or the name of it, if you could just email it when you get a chance. I'd be curious to read it. And just an observation that I'm always, I don't know what the right word is, but somewhat taken aback by the fact that so many of the people that call for a reexamination of the roadways in Central Park on the basis of pedestrian safety are yet always resistant to increased enforcement of traffic rules with regard to e-bikes and other bicycles. I hesitate to use the word hypocritical, but it strikes me that enforcement of those traffic rules with regard to cyclists and particularly e-bikes and so forth has to be an integral part of any evaluation of certainly of pedestrian safety within Central.
Thank you, Jay. I don't know who you're referring to, but this board has consistently called for increase. What?
I can't imagine.
Oh, this board has consistently called for greater enforcement and greater safety in the park.
Well,
Mark?
actually, Howard, quite a while ago when I introduced 2 resolutions about registering e-bikes and insurance for e-bikes and enforcement of the traffic rules, there were people on this committee who spoke against increased enforcement. That's a simple fact.
And actually, a couple of people on the committee also voted against the enforcement of bikes in Central Park when we brought it up in Parks Committee, and then came to the full board. It's still passed anyway.
So that's a simple truth.
Okay. The bottom line is there clearly is not enough enforcement out there, and that's an issue. Mark? You have to unmute.
You'd think I'd know how to do that by now. Enforcement's always been an issue for us, and it's always been a scarce resource. One of the things that, so if there's a meaningful way in which we can advocate for enforcement, then I would certainly consider it. I wonder if there might be another way to do that. And Ken may know the answer to this better than I do for sure. But we've often talked in these contexts about structural or geometry changes that can create a more safe crossing for pedestrians and other people who are vulnerable or mobility challenged. One of the things that I always thought was a useful thing, and I actually make use of, is that when we put in the protected bike lanes, there are pedestrian refuges at certain intersections. And my personal experience, which I hesitate to make a policy decision based on my personal experience, but my personal experience of the corner that I believe Susan is referencing is that it's kind of a wide roadway there. It's a long way across. And that's, no, it's not. Well, it strikes that way to me. It's several lanes. And I wonder if you put a concrete barrier of some kind of island or one of those kinds of things that, so you can get halfway across at a light, whether that might protect pedestrians in a way that while we're waiting for enforcement still would be a meaningful addition. Has
It's
that,
the same width. It's Mark, it's the same width as the rest of the drive, actually.
I understand, but it feels like it's a long way to go for little ones crossing to the Heckscher ball fields, which I think is a worthy point of focus of what you were talking about. And so specifically to that, right now it's an all or nothing crossing, if I understand it correctly. And is that something that we should, instead of just asking DOT do something, maybe we can prompt them with at least an example of something that might be useful. If it's been thought of, then I'll shut up. But that's just my reaction to the debate that constantly goes on about enforcement. Is maybe there's something else we can think about or do.
We've asked them to do a lot in the park. I'm not sure that the timing of the traffic signals is now timed for non-motor vehicles. I think it's still timed for those.
One thing that is good at that intersection, I will say, is that the buttons that you push to activate the traffic signals, those work. A lot of them don't. And at that particular spot, when you push it, it very quickly turns to a red light, but that doesn't do anything to get anybody to stop at that light. But I don't want to go on about that. While I have the floor, can I just say a really happy thing about transportation, which is that over the past 4 days, I've seen a dramatic increase in the presence of the police officers in the subway. It's really breathtaking.
I have too. That's great. Yep. Yep.
Elizabeth?
Sure, just really quickly, I think everything that folks are saying about 64th Street, assuming that's the intersection we're talking about, or the crossing into the ball fields, we walk there almost every day with the dog. We do see a lot of violations. I think it'd be great if we could make sure that DOT is on the case on it, but also I think there's a limited amount of what we can do. Between now and then, as all of you know, there's the marathon coming up. There's a hill. It's the last hill as you go up before you cross the finish line. So it is, there's an angle there. It's not a flat surface. And in the morning, I think more people, it's been widely noted that more and more people are walking and taking their bikes or walking through the park, especially as you get south of the area. If they're working in Midtown, there's a lot more traffic, which is a good thing, to see people taking things during the rush hour times in the morning and in the evening. So anything we can do to try to advance this, I think would be good. Thanks.
Thank you. I think that's it. Anyone from the
That's it for the
community?
hand. Jay's hand is up from a previous attempt to speak. Okay, Jay's hand is down. All right. One of the other items is the Hudson River Greenway connections. Barbara, do you want?
Barbara's hand
Still a
up.
hand up.
Oh,
You're muted,
Barbara, you're muted.
Sorry. I just wanted to point out that a lot of the problem has to do with all the illegal vehicles that are using the parks. Riverside as well as Central Park. There's e-vehicles, there are motorcycles, there are motor scooters. They are unlicensed, and it is a major problem. And until we get some enforcement and until these vehicles are licensed, in my opinion, the problems are going to continue to exist because there's no barrier to speed. They go as fast as they want, and there's nobody there to stop them. I think we should take that up as an issue, right?
We're on record as asking for licensing of all of these electric vehicles, and I don't know where that's going. That's going to have to be a state initiative. Hopefully our resolution was sent to our members of the Assembly and State
Let's
Senate.
ask our state senator
Yeah,
for that part of the district. Hopefully he'll be able to help us.
maybe.
Community member who wants to speak.
Howard, did you say somebody who wanted to give an update on the Greenway connections?
That would be at 7:15. She's celebrating a religious holiday and will be participating
Oh,
at 7:15.
Okay, then we'll go back to that.
May I just chime in on regarding something that Barbara mentioned?
Sure.
In addition to whatever vehicles that we want to license or insure or not, the fact is, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara, I think part of what you're referring to is that there are Revel scooters and mopeds in Riverside Park and in Central Park. They're not supposed to be anywhere near there. They're not supposed to be in there. I see them all the time, and they are racing through. So, you know, and of course, yes, the motorcycles and ATVs sometimes enter into the park, but mopeds all day long, and Revels.
Right. Exactly.
Revels do have license plates on them, don't they?
They sure
Yeah,
do.
They do. Yeah,
And by the
okay.
way, and Revel has encouraged us when they were here before, and I've actually taken them up on it to take a photograph. If you can get the, you know, don't put yourself in danger, but if you can get a cop, you know, if you can get the license plate, great. And they actually, I saw someone riding the wrong way on Broadway, and I snapped a picture, sent it over, and that person was suspended. So they seem to be responsible in that regard. Yeah.
Bravo.
Hey, Andrew,
Wonderful.
community member who wants to talk. He's got his hand up.
Who did you say?
Community.
Oh, community member. Okay, let's see. I guess that would be Dan Friedman.
And then Paul.
Yeah.
Okay, I only see Dan. I don't see a Paul, but
I
all
see a
right.
Paul Rickler.
Oh, wait a minute. Now I do. Yes, I do. All right, Dan, you go first.
Okay, I'll try to be specific, although I do have commentary on each of these DOT projects. The one that jumps off the page, literally life or death, is West End Avenue. I've lived on the corner of West End and 96th Street for 50 years. I no longer can cross that corner. Incrementally, it has become, and I don't want to exaggerate because they use this expression in the Vietnam War training book, it has become a killing zone. Literally, I can give you examples of 4 lanes of traffic going in the westerly direction on 96th Street, traffic coming east on 96th Street, going into the westbound lane, traffic turning on the corner of West End Avenue to get through these 4 lanes of traffic that are blocking the intersection, and literally just going through the red light and turning right. Almost getting my wife the other day. A car going over the curb on 96th Street and West End Avenue on the northwest corner. And the reason is so much congestion has been caused in one place on West End Avenue with all of these previous redesigns. I brought up suggestions at each previous redesign, which was ignored. And now we're in a position where we've got construction in 3 buildings right there, 2 on 96th Street, 1 on 95th Street in West End, the Williams. And at times during the day, there is only 1 lane of traffic open in each direction. I spoke up with the land use committee. They all just wanted to bite Feltner's story that, oh, the construction is going to be made available, going to be completed on Broadway and 96th Street, so we won't have a cumulative effect. We do have the cumulative effect. The Williams was not factored in because the community board asked Feltner, can you please show us all the construction going on in the neighborhood and the impact? And of course, he said, no, that's none of my business. He got away with, I don't even want to say. So the net is that street where the kids walk to PS 75 is closed. The kids are walking in the gutter. I mean, I don't even know what to describe it anymore. I mean, it is kind of, it's kind of unbelievable. And people have been killed on each of those corners of West End Avenue. And the
Dan,
corner,
let me ask you this,
Yeah.
please. When you
Yeah.
said traffic was going eastbound in a westbound lane on 96th Street, which block? Was it Riverside,
96,
West End? or
between West End and Broadway.
West End and Broadway, okay.
That's where everything backs up. The Department of Transportation and you have created so much contention for the street that the cars are going any which way. It's like the floods are overriding the banks of the river. They dammed it up. Earlier, there was discussion of, oh, the DOT is gonna, we want them to look into the fact that they did the redesign with a can of paint. At the time, I said a can of paint will cause all the bicyclists to think it's their road. The pedestrians will think it's their road. The cars will think it's their road. And now we have the e-bikes, the motorcycles, the scooters. Everyone thinks the painted road is theirs. That is not a way to design a road. This is not, I mean, this is a way to design a killing zone. Pull them into the zone and knock them down. I was trained that way. This is the way I would design a killing zone.
I think the answer for this extremely dangerous intersection is to have a meeting with DOT on the site there and show them all the things we're asking for and what the dangers are. I think, you know, as I said, getting that speed camera that's at that corner reinstalled and reoperating is extremely important. It'll get license plates of people that are doing these unsafe things. We want to show them how we've been asking for something physical in the street, not just paint. So yes, I think a meeting on site is definitely called for.
I'd like to join the meeting because I have 50 years worth of experience that will tell you what was done each step of the way, beginning with the closing of the West Side Highway entrance on Riverside Drive, forcing everyone onto 96th Street, beginning with all the houses being built on 96th Street, high density, 24 floors. People are spilling into the streets. If I were to say that children shouldn't go to school because it's not safe, I wouldn't let my children cross that corner. Now, there would be a very simple solution that I brought up 100 times. They have a crossing guard during the day. I have no idea why there are no traffic officers for extended hours. We know the corners. We know where people got killed, 97, 96, 95th, Amsterdam in 97, Amsterdam in 96. We know where they all get killed. We know it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. We'll let you know when we get that on-site meeting.
I would love it.
Paul?
We have Paul, and then we have Ken.
Yep.
Thank you very much, co-chairs. Thank you, CB7, for the chance to speak to you. I'm a member of the public. I'm also a member of CB8, but I'm speaking here in my personal capacity. I saw the agenda item you had on the 72nd Street. I know you haven't had any feedback yet from the DOT. I'm here to mention to you all and encourage you to join CB8 on a resolution that we passed last month, 38-3. The resolution is very straightforward, very broad, and very dramatic. It's calling for protected bike lanes every 10 blocks or so, the length of Central Park, up and down, and a two-way protected bike lane around Central Park. Again, this is passed unanimously at CB8. There are two major advantages, if I can use that word, for this. The first one's pretty obvious. It'll stop people being killed. For example, Carling Mott was killed on East 85th Street just a few weeks ago, where there was no protected bike lane, and there could have been one. As recently as 2 or 3 years ago, Dr. Daniel Kammerman was killed trying to get across the park on 95th on the transverse, and he was killed on his way to work as a pediatrician. There are a lot of people being killed, maimed, and injured. Having protected bike lanes will, I won't say will stop that, will dramatically reduce that. And the second point, it's not just about stopping mayhem and death, but having an easy way, a safe way to get across the park and up and down the park will change the lives, will be transformative for the lives of tens of thousands of people who get around New York City. So I'm grateful for the chance to speak to you. I would love it if this committee could have a look at the resolution that CB8 across the park adopted only a couple of weeks ago and see if it's something you consider adopting as well, to join us in calling for the DOT to make bike riding and other people's lives as well much safer. We have three of the best places to ride a bike in Manhattan. We have the Hudson River Greenway, the East Side, and we have Central Park Loop. But there's no way to get between these places, which is just frankly absurd. So I'll leave it there and thank you for the indulgence and time.
Thank you, Paul. Let me just start by saying we have a resolution that's been outstanding for literally years at this point, calling for a route on 72nd Street.
Yeah.
Again, there's no response. So calling for additional routes is probably not going to be particularly useful. Why don't you send us your resolution and we'll take a look at it. Again, we have been, and we ask monthly for updates. When our representative does attend, we ask her for an update, and there's usually nothing happening on it. We think 72nd is the most obvious place for it because there's a cross in the traverse in the park.
Yeah,
where
there's a
cyclists can
cross-park
get from one
route.
side to the other. Again, the DOT has been totally absent on this issue, notwithstanding the fact that we adopted this resolution and we asked for it almost monthly. So
Just so
it's very
you know,
discouraging,
just so
is
you
what
know
I'm
as
trying to
well,
say.
just so you know as well, at the last meeting, Mark Levine joined the meeting and spoke out in favor of this. We weren't expecting him to do that, specifically this river to river and around the park plan that we have. We had Keith Powers and we had Judy Menon, the two council members, speaking in favor. Of course, I understand you've had 72nd on the books for a while, nothing's happened. But if you could join with us, and yes, I will send it to you. I guess I should send it to your district office and they'll pass it to you.
Yeah, that's great.
It does increase the chances, I hope.
But the risk of just going off into a frustrating conversation, there's clear direction from the community on this and on so many other matters that impact street safety. What's wrong with the DOT? Why aren't they listening to the community? Why do they regularly and consistently ignore our resolutions?
Thank you both very much. Thank you.
It was not a rhetorical question, but it usually seems like a rhetorical question, but it really wasn't. But thank you, Paul. Ken.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, Paul, thank you. CB8 has historically been very resistant to crosstown bike lanes, even of the painted variety. So this was really amazing to see such an overwhelming vote. I think we should consider it here. And just on 96 and West End, we have asked for years for better info. There are really two issues there, which are pretty separate. There's that Dan brought up. There's the congestion, which is probably a lot caused by the construction and is therefore temporary. And then there's the problem of safety at the intersection. I personally know somebody who was struck by a left-turning car at 96 and West End Avenue and was severely injured and may still be suffering. And that was 3-4 years ago. So one thing that would have prevented what happened to her would be just a very simple thing of not allowing cars to make left turns when pedestrians are crossing north-south on the west side of West End Avenue and 96. Very simple. And DOT is, we've asked for that or we've proposed it. I'm not sure whether the board has taken a position on it, but they've said, no, can't do it. We also asked for a pedestrian refuge in the middle of 96th Street to channel cars turning traffic. I don't believe we have that yet either. We've also asked,
We don't.
and we've asked for neck downs to shorten the crossing distance. I mean, we have kids, as Dan mentioned, we have a school there. They're crossing all the time to and from school. It's really crazy.
This is why this location really demands an on-site meeting.
Yeah.
Of DOT and us.
Thank you, Andrew, for your idea of an on-site. We're
absolutely.
Definitely due for that.
We are due. And hopefully before the cold weather. Any other hands up?
Anyone from the community?
No, I don't see any other hands.
There is a hand.
There is a hand?
Yes, it was if I'm pronouncing it, Deborah.
Oh, that's regarding, Deborah is will be giving a presentation
Oh, very good.
on safely accessing the Hudson River Greenway and some related.
Oh, excellent. Perfect
Yeah,
timing.
I knew I was giving the presentation, but I just had something to say on what everyone was saying
great.
about the DOT action. Paul mentioned Mark Levine, and I had known that that
Deborah, you're fading.
She's muted.
Sorry
She
about
needs to
that.
unmute.
Technical
Oh,
issue. So I mentioned to Mark Levine when I ran into him at a community event that DOT wasn't, I said, thank you for your remarks for CB8. It's a problem that that CB7 has been doing a lot of bike infrastructure and safety infrastructure work, but it hasn't been being implemented by DOT. And Mark Levine said he wasn't aware of that issue and he took it very seriously. And I think it's a really good time to follow up with him. And he was really motivated to help CB7 get DOT to act on the resolutions that they had. So it was really nice talking to him about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. For instance, the loading zone meeting that I discussed before, we've sent it to them many times, but again, there's been no action on it. We'll send it again.
Yeah, I mean, it's always about getting the ear. So, but it's great hearing about all those issues you guys are talking about.
Thanks.
Would it be a good time for me to transition to mine? I can also wait for other.
Sure. Andrew, are we ready to move on?
Oh, no, I think the Greenway connections we passed that number, so we're certainly ready for it now.
Great.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Great.
This is just a presentation that I made. As Paul was talking about, there's limited connections between the Greenway and the Upper West Side. So I just wanted to talk about two of the main connections. I'm going to talk about 68. And I always forget exactly, is it 94th? I'll get there when I get there. So this is, and hopefully we can talk about like some concrete ways to make it better. If you see on this aerial map, when you're coming up the Greenway, one of the main ways for bikes to actually exit is to go up this ramp, either going north or south, and exit at 68. So it's a very prime place where bikes are going to come in and out. But you also see there's a playground right here, little engine playground, and it's also how pedestrians are getting down to the park. So it's a very important intersection, even though it might not seem that way. So here I've zoomed in on it, and this blue area right here is what I'd like to talk to you about primarily today, and this blue over here and over here. As you see, there's a crosswalk here and a crosswalk here. There's a stop sign here and a stop sign here. It's very significant that it's a stop sign, which means cars are looking, is it my turn to go based on what they can see? And also here, there is no stop sign at all. So again, cars just have the right of way.
The camera's on.
All
right.
Are you guys able to see?
Yeah, we see your video.
Okay. So this first picture I'm going to show you is me standing right here in the intersection. So I'm not on the sidewalk, I'm at the intersection. The playground is right here. And it's me as a biker trying to cross this intersection after waiting for, my turn at the stop street. I'm here and this picture is being taken facing north. So I took this picture and I said, I want to show people how hard it is to see this bus. You can see I'm standing in the street. I'm not even in the sidewalk. I would have to move into traffic to even see the bus. I don't think the bus can see me. This is me as an adult on a bicycle, so I'm pretty high up. I'm not even a child. And you can see the visibility is horrible. But then when I stepped forward, I was floored. I did not know that this red car was in front of the bus the entire time. And it really just gives you a sense of how limited the visibility is. You cannot see at all that there is a car at this intersection if I didn't know about the bus. That car cannot see me. And I take this route every day home from work. And every day, I wait for the car to go, I wait for the other car to go, and so many times then it's my turn to go, and the drivers drop their jaws. They say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't see you there. I didn't know it was your turn." I have to actively step out into traffic for anyone to see. This is a view looking south to show you what the view is from the car. It's not the car's fault. They can't. Can you see if there's anybody behind this car? Can you see if there's a child there, a stroller there, a kid on a scooter there? You can't. And so the proposal I wanted to bring today is to remove the parking spots here and to put planters to increase visibility. There was a study out of Hoboken that having visible intersections is the #1 way that we can use to reduce like accidents. Hoboken has very low accident rates because of their visibility. This is going further along on Freedom, and you can see there is a crosswalk here. There's no crosswalk here, but cars park here. And I spoke to a traffic agent once who was at this intersection, and he said this car is completely legal. There is no stop sign here. So if I'm here, I cannot see if any car is going down the street. If I'm even past the intersection, I cannot see if a car is coming down the street. I can only see if there is a car coming down Freedom Place if I am in Freedom Place. And that's just not a safety. I don't think that there should be cars parked between two crosswalks. It's not safe for anybody. Here again is if you're going down Freedom Place, here's the blue car. I would be a bicyclist on the other side of this blue car. You cannot see them. So it's just about an example of visible sightlines. So when I talked about planters, these are the kind of planters I was envisioning. They're very heavy. They're used as traffic calming measures, and they're also beautiful. And I think that it really fits in with having the park and the playground there. The other thing I learned when researching this is that DOT is actually looking to change the law that allows the car parking there. As I said, I spoke to a traffic agent, and he said that the car is legally parked there. And my proposal would, so DOT is actually looking to change section 4-08F7 of the traffic rules. And I think that we should, perhaps if we're thinking of how to support changes in this area, in addition to doing the planters, we could be in support of DOT changing their rule about unmarked crosswalks and uncontrolled T section. So we want
Deborah,
to.
can I stop you for a second and ask you, do you know what the parking regulations are on those spaces you've highlighted?
So this would be, the green would be allowed, the red would be unallowed. I got this from a DOT website.
No, I understand, but those red spaces, what is the parking regulation that's posted on that block?
I don't know exactly about, this was just the T intersection, and I think it's showing that these green ones are allowed. My point is that when I spoke, I think we should try and get it so that this blue car in between two crosswalks, and then if you see here, what we have is cars allowed between, you see it's a T intersection and a car is allowed between these two crosswalks. Those is what I think is difficult. They're both T intersections, and that's why the weird parking is allowed, because I think they think, oh, there's no car traffic to worry about, but there is really serious pedestrian and cyclist traffic to be concerned about. My proposal is to make parking where the blue is not allowed, either de facto because we put planters there. I don't know how that would work with DOT. That's something I guess maybe we could explore more if we're allowed to put planters in an illegal parking spot, or to say to DOT, we support changes to the T intersection parking laws. So I don't say that I know enough about parking laws to say, it's just, I was very surprised when I spoke to the parking agent because I was reporting the car as like illegally parked, but he said, no, it's not, it's legal. And then I did some more research. So it was a little bit beyond my scope to know exactly what it is, but DOT is actually trying to change it. I think they recognize that it's not.
That intersection is 68th and Freedom Place?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can go back and just show that. And again, it's it might happen other places, but I think specifically here because it's the connection to the Hudson River Greenway for bicyclists and pedestrians, one of the only connections for a long stretch. That it would make sense to make it so that sight lines are more visible.
Okay,
There's
thank you.
other things that I think could be done. You know, I think this is a very wide street. Both of them are. I think if we're talking about a protected bike network, I think they would be great because of how wide they are and how slow the traffic naturally is. But that I think, you know, we're talking about, I came to this committee knowing that DOT has been reluctant to make a lot of changes, but it's like this very small change would have the biggest impact. So I didn't want to like make the list too long, but I think just the small thing is very clear. And again, this is a playground right here. I think that's important. The other intersection that I wanted to quickly talk about was on Central Park West. Again, I just wanted to say thank you so much to the community board for making Central Park West. It's been very transformative for me being able to commute home every day. There's just one intersection that I think could be probably a lot of intersections, but something concrete on 96th. If you see the blue is where bikers can go, either straight or turn. Red is where cars can go, straight or turn. But what you notice here is it's a very wide turn for cars, right? They can only go in the second half of the road, not the first half of the road. And something that I've learned as a cyclist is you always want cars to make wide turns. The wider the turn, the more they have to look at the intersection and the less you're playing a game of chicken of who's going to go first. And cars are much more respectful when they have to make wide turns. So if you there's a lot of space right here to put barricades so that it would force a wide turn as opposed to the really tight turn that they take here to create a conflict zone with pedestrians and bikers. So it's, again, it's not changing anything about how cars go, it's just slowing them down so that they can see. So that was just a second suggestion. You can see here an example of, I think it's in Brooklyn, maybe not, but you can see how the wide turn, and they actually kind of also use this thing with having bikers also curve. So what you get is right here, you're eye to eye with the car, and it's through these buffers, right? They also, here's another example. So it's something, these are actually taken from DOT's Twitter. So it's something that DOT knows about, they know how to use, and I think it could be great used there. Another thing I just wanted to bring about an idea of was something called continuous sidewalks. It was something that DOT started pushing at the beginning of Adams being mayor, but I think it's kind of dropped to the wayside. It's a very interesting idea. In Central Park, we have clear pedestrian zones where cars cross over. And I think that they might be really good candidates for something called a continuous sidewalk. That's where the street rises up to the level of the sidewalk. So this is an example that DOT has done. This is an example from another city, but you can see how they continue the kind of stonework and they make it different. They make this part of the sidewalk as opposed to part of the street. And the subtle grade up sends the message to cars, you're now in a pedestrian area. Raising it up makes it easier for pedestrians to go, and it just reinforces pedestrian right of way. And it was just like an idea that when I heard about the continuous sidewalks, that I thought, why not Central Park? After having this idea, some people said it might not work for the places where the buses go. But again, if we have intersections, you know, like 96, or there's ones at 100, there are no buses going through. Really, those are left over from the days of when cars used to be allowed in Central Park, and they're not used as transverses or crossroads anymore. I think we should think about making them more affirmatively pedestrian. So that was kind of more of a pie in the sky idea. The first two were concrete, and this last one, I don't have a suggestion. I just think it's a real problem. And this is 95th Street. And again, I think we all know how cars come off of the Henry Hudson Parkway. It's again a major way that bikes and pedestrians come in and out of Riverside. And I know that it's been treated with speed bumps, but the speed bumps are inadequate to slow down cars. Cars speed over this. You have bicyclists trying to come at the same time as cars. I always just cross and pull over and wait for all the cars to go. Then I go halfway up, pull over, wait for all the cars to go because they're just so aggressive. And all they do is speed to the light and wait. So it's not that I'm asking for anything to slow down cars in terms of their travel time, just for their use of the street. This is how wide the street is. So you can see whenever streets are wide, cars are going to go fast. And my solution is to use the kind of traffic calming they've used elsewhere, which is to make this street seem more narrow. It's like an optical illusion that they use in some places. And it's, again, these planters, which are really effective because the one thing cars care about is not about hitting cyclists, but about hitting their car with something that won't hurt it. And I don't mean this disparagingly. It's a matter of psychology of how they go slower when they're near these kind
So
of.
Deborah, I'm gonna personally inspect 68th and Freedom Place.
Okay,
We're not in a position to vote on that tonight because you've just brought it to us and we need to investigate it.
Yeah, I'm done with my presentation. I know I just asked for 10 minutes and I apologize for if I took too long. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone for listening.
Thank
I'll
you for
just note
that.
at the outset that 2 years ago, we called for daylighting intersections within a 1-block radius of any school, senior center, or facility for disabled. We've also called for restrictions on left-hand turns more than 2 years ago, and we haven't heard back from the DOT on either of those issues at all.
And on the issue of 95th Street off the Henry Hudson, we've even asked state officials to investigate, because it's a state highway, investigate removing the 95th Street exit and making everybody go on 96th Street, which is a major crosstown street, takes you through the park and all of that. We don't have an answer on that yet either. Progress is slow. So let's, if you can remove that from our screens, Deborah, that would be wonderful.
Yep.
Oh, I'm not sure how. I thought I stopped it. Okay, I apologize. I thought I stopped.
All right, sure. Is that Jay's? Jay?
Yeah,
Oh,
there
I
was
see some
something on
hands.
the screen that I wanted to reference with a
Yeah,
question.
go ahead, Jay.
Is there a way to put it back up? Yeah, can you go all the way back to when you were talking about the west side on Riverside Drive, the photo that showed the 2 crosswalks? I have a question. Right? I think it was a different view. Next one, maybe. Yeah, that one. I apologize if this is a stupid question, but would it be safer to not have both of those crosswalks? This is looking southbound, right? So to just eliminate the southbound crosswalk and have all the pedestrian crossing in the north crosswalk?
You have the same problem from both sides, meaning the one time I was on the south crosswalk and I had a car that was surprised by me. It was a car right here going north. There's lack of visibility from both directions. A car going north is not going to see someone here crossing. And because it's a stop sign, it really relies on people stopping and waiting. So I think it's going to be a problem no matter how many crosswalks. And then you also get the issue that then you're forcing families to cross twice when they could have just crossed once. So I don't think that eliminating crosswalks would make it feel better, but I'm open to other people's thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay, you could redo the share screen. Let's see, we have Susan, William Ortiz, and then Ken.
Am I next, Howard?
Yes, you're next. You're up.
Thanks so much. Interesting presentation, Deborah. I'm just curious about your background and where you live. Do you live in the district?
I live just north of the district and I commute through it every day. So I'm just above. And I just get interested in this because when you bike every day, you start to notice certain patterns and you want to stay educated on how you can stay safer. My 3 kids bike through that area. I can't get to the Greenway with them because there is no safe connection between Central Park and the Greenway. So it's a really important issue to myself. And a lot of my life is on the Upper West Side in the district. They go to after school in the district. We go to religious services in the district, and all of them are very hard to get to because of the lack of crosstown and especially to the Greenway. So I appreciate that you allow me to talk, even though I don't live, but a lot of my interests are there.
No, and one other question. Do you have a particular background in transportation design?
No. I don't. I just think that
I'm sorry for asking, but it's not on the agenda. It didn't say who you were, what you're.
Oh, no, I just am coming in my individual capacity.
Right.
Thank you. Sorry for the lack of introduction.
Thank you.
The Ken and then William Ortiz.
I think,
Ken, you have to unmute.
I think William was next.
Oh, William and then Ken.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you, Ken. I concur with a lot of this presentation. I lived on 96th Street. I'm currently near the Boulevard, and you're pretty spot on the experience that you have. Obviously, I bike everywhere, I walk everywhere, I skateboard everywhere as well. What makes the Boulevard very unique is that it's really hard to hear cars for 2 reasons. One, the cars are actually driving fairly slow. Rarely do I see cars speeding, and if I do, I hear them at night. So that's the one thing that I'll say. So it's really hard to hear the cars because they're driving slow. So you kind of have to really peek your head when you're crossing the boulevard. In addition to the loudest thing in the neighborhood is the highway. So that's another reason why it makes it really difficult to hear anything. It's just the cars whooshing by. I think other states, other cities have a rule where you can't have a car parked in front of a stop sign for 30 feet or something, just to give visibility. So I know it exists out in our country somewhere. So I think that is, it's really hard to see. Right? So I agree that there's something that needs to be done. I had a question about 96th Street, and I guess that's something we should talk about in the future, as far as having something to force the cars to have a wide turn. If we were to do something like that, I would prefer to see something with paint, because if you take the Crosstown bus to the east side, that street gets really narrowed and get bottlenecked. So at least if you go over with paint, it'd be easier than having some large structure by Central Park. But I appreciate your presentation. I think it was great. I think you were spot on. And I look forward to the board discussing this more.
Thank you, Bill. Ken.
Yeah, let me chime in and thank Deborah. You clearly put a lot of thought and work into this. Just on a few of the points, I think you've given us a lot to think about, and maybe some resolutions will come out of this. I'd mentioned that Hoboken, you mentioned, has daylit as a policy virtually every intersection, and they haven't had a death in I don't know how many years on their streets, which is pretty remarkable. We should be doing the same. I was just wondering, I know we had a question when the Freedom Place was first, Freedom Place and also Riverside Boulevard. Are those streets still, are they controlled by the DOT yet? I think that's one question that we'd have to answer, because I know that earlier they technically weren't, and they couldn't put in traffic control devices and such like. So we need to figure that out. And the regulation on the parking and unmarked crosswalks at T intersections, do you know whether that's a state rule that DOT is trying to get the state to change, or is that something, a city rule they're trying to get city council to change, or
I had the impression it was an internal DOT rule, but I could try and do some more research on that. I had a contact who knows a lot about legislation, so he was the one who pointed it to me. I could try to get back to about what I find out.
So if it's internal, it would seem pretty easy for them to make that change.
You would hope, right?
But we could certainly go on record supporting that effort. And also 96th Street, I just note that when you force drivers to make wider turns, you also force them to slow down, which is the secret to saving lives. And William, I would just say that paint, just does not do it. In a situation like that, drivers do not respect paint, which is why it disappears so quickly because they drive over it. You really need physical structures. Really the way you slow drivers down and you save lives. I was just reading an article about Finland and how they've managed to almost achieve Vision Zero in Helsinki and throughout the country. And their sort of their philosophy is you need to make drivers feel uncomfortable. And unfortunately, that's the way drivers feel a little uncomfortable.
Or get more people on mass transit, Ken.
Both.
Touche.
Because they still have to get off mass transit and walk home or bike home or something like that.
Elizabeth, is your hand up?
Wait, yeah.
Oh, you're not
It
done?
is.
Okay.
That was it. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, just really quickly, I wanted to thank Deborah for commenting tonight and make clear that thanks for coming. This is your first Community Board 7 meeting. We are here for everybody who lives, works, visits, travels through the neighborhood. So just wanted to make sure you felt welcome. Specific to the 68th Street crosswalks, the two that are one on the south and one on the north, my experience has been that the one on the north is more widely traveled because people are using it to go into Riverside Park South and take the ramp down, which has been there for a long time. The south crosswalk, my understanding, and I don't know if it closed during the pandemic, but there used to be a school there. So I don't know if that might be the reason. And I'm sure that between Andrew and Howard, we'll figure out a way to investigate sort of what's going on in that part of the neighborhood to try to help and mitigate any concerns you might have.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on with our agenda. The last item before our two other items was an update on congestion pricing. So the MTA is still awaiting the approval of their environmental assessment with the feds. It has not yet come through. In the meantime, the Traffic Mobility Review Board, or TMRB, is looking over various options in pricing, time of day, day of week, exemptions, and all of those really thorny issues, like do we give drivers credit for utilizing a Port Authority bridge and tunnel or an MTA bridge and tunnel? Are we going to let yellow cabs okay, but Ubers and Lyfts not okay? Credit for various types of vehicles, age, people who live within the district, how many trips outside the district. Obviously, ADA vehicles are exempt, police and sanitation vehicles are exempt. All of these issues await the Traffic Mobility Review Board. I can't imagine what's going on in their heads, but we will be getting an update on this in a month or two, I'm guessing, at the MTA board, and I will keep everybody updated. But when you hear people who are really opposed to this saying $23 for this, $23 hasn't been decided. It could be as low as $9, and you could get credit for a toll you've paid. So, that's just for folks who are really opposed to say it's going to be $23. And anybody who's opposed has to also come up with another good way of supporting the MTA's capital program. This is going to raise $15 billion of a $52 billion capital program. what else would raise that? So, you know, it's easy to say we're opposed, but this will improve our air quality, improve our congestion, give money to mass transit, make it easier for buses and taxis to get through, deliveries to get through. I mean, there's just lots of benefits which aren't really being spelled out in folks' opposition. This is an election year and crazy things are being said. Let's see what happens after Election Day.
We have, I guess, 2 comments on congestion pricing, first from Ken and then from Jay.
Sure.
Not for me. My hand was a
Then,
residual.
Jay?
Yeah, without trying to stimulate an extended discussion on congestion pricing, but Andrew, just an observation. I understand that, you know, when you say anyone who's against congestion pricing, let them try and find an alternate source of financing for public transportation. Just raising funds for a particular purpose is not necessarily a justification for a bad idea. You could double real estate taxes in the city and dedicate it to public transportation. You could raise the city income tax. You could put a tax on the groceries. So that's like saying the ends justifies the means. Congestion pricing as a concept, and when it as implementation has to stand on its own as a supportable program, not just because it produces dollars.
All right, Jay, you're entitled to that opinion, of course. It has worked in London and in Scandinavia.
And
Air
it's
quality,
the policy of our CB7.
it is our policy.
Yes, yeah.
And one other thing, Jay, to answer you is, and I hope our Senator Schumer is going to be pushing for this, is we have 40% of the nation's transit riders, but get 16% of the federal funding. Something really wrong with that picture, and we need to get more federal funding, but that's for operating. This is for capital funding. And then I know that there'll be a push in the legislature for the legislature to take up some operating system subsidies as well when the legislature comes back in January. But you know, it does stand on its own in terms of reducing congestion, improving air quality, better throughput for vehicles that will still be using Manhattan below 60th Street. But it is the board's. We did pass a resolution, so I don't want to get into a real extended discussion on that, but it will raise a lot of money.
Okay, what's next?
We have.
I just raised my hand, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to respond to Jay. I mean, doubling real estate taxes will not have the benefit of reducing congestion by or traffic into Midtown by 10 to 20%.
Those are just examples of
huge amount.
fundraising.
Yeah, I know, but that's why tolling drivers is so important, and we're not talking about other ways of raising revenue.
Thank you, Ken. Let's move on to the next item on our agenda, which is
520 West End Avenue.
Yeah.
Petition to the DOT to construct, maintain, and use 3 double metal garbage enclosures on the north sidewalk of 85th in front of the side yard.
Is there someone here to speak to that?
Jesse, do you know if anybody is available to speak to that?
Somebody just put their hand up in the attendees. Adrian Figueroa.
Okay, let's get to Adrian. Oh my goodness.
That's very bad internet.
That is terrible, Adrian. We couldn't understand you. It sounded like a little gibberish there. Can you possibly?
Very bad.
May I suggest you disconnect and come back and see if that fixes the issue? Okay, hopefully she'll come back and we'll be able to understand her.
Let's move on to the West 64th and West End Avenue. That
Yes.
is there someone here from the Division of Infrastructure at the Department of Design and Construction?
No, this application came in to our general email for our recommendation. So it was like 85 pages and I just extracted the one that pertains to our district.
But is someone going to speak to this issue? Because I looked at it and I couldn't summarize it.
I think the issue was whether those various sidewalk, those corners are in a landmark district, which they are not. And if any changes to the streets or sidewalks there would affect the status of that landmark district, which of course this is not. So I'm not sure this is, I think it was sent to us just for consideration, but I don't know that we.
Andrew, there's a hand raised by a Deb Sponheimer or Spoonheimer. I'm sorry, I'm butchering that.
Okay, let's see if we can understand that person.
Hi, I'm Deb. I'm a
Hi,
resident.
Deb.
Hey there, I'm a resident of 520 West End Avenue, and I, along with at least one other neighbor, are curious about this issue because as far as we know, there already exist garbage enclosures in front of the side yard, just as described in this application. So we're not sure what it's about.
They exist already. This might just be something to get us to approve them because they're already constructed.
That might be. They're metal, as I understand it. It's to keep the rats out of the garbage. They have very heavy lids, and they're up against the brick wall that encloses the side yard.
Yeah, I had a feeling this could be one of those where it's coming to us posthumously. It's already been done.
Okay.
I'm back.
So why don't we table it until the next meeting if we can't get somebody who's advocating for it? And since they're already there,
Adrian is
no
back.
damage done.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Sure can.
Is it better?
perfect.
Okay, so to answer the previous person who spoke, these are to legalize the installation of the metal enclosures.
Thank you.
Is there a picture of these enclosures?
Yes, they're in the application. Do you want me to share?
Please.
Yeah, just a photograph of.
Yeah, that would be great.
I don't see my sharing button, so I guess you have to allow me to share.
Andrew, I can't do that. If you could, Andrew.
I'm going to add him as a
You need to make
panelist.
him a panelist. You need to
Yes,
make him a
Jesse's going to do that, and then you'll share.
Okay. Join as a panelist. Okay.
There.
Because
Should be
sharing
fine.
is caring.
Maybe.
He should be able to share now.
Yes, I could share. So let me set this up. Give me a second. And you just want to see the pictures. Okay. I will put it on the screen right now. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay. All right. So there we go. There we go. Ooh. Okay. I'm going to enlarge one of these photographs.
Yes.
Okay, so here is, you can see my hand?
Yes.
Okay, so these are the enclosures as they exist right now.
Mhm.
And they're metal, and they have 6 handles to open up to the top, pull out the garbage cans, and unload them, and then reload them. And that's pretty much it. So
When were they installed? Do you have an idea?
We don't know the violation. I could find out when it was issued. Doesn't indicate when it was installed, but we know we have like a bit of a baseline for that. So give me a second. I will tell you when they were installed. I believe in, well, the first violation, they received 2 violations from Landmarks. The first violation was in 2001. So I would assume a couple of years beforehand.
And they're just coming to us now?
Yes, because building ownership has changed. They hired me. I investigated the whole building. There are some violations that we are clearing up to clean the building, and these are one of them.
Okay, change of ownership. That's why we're getting this now. Okay.
Yeah, it's really saying it's under an estate, and the person who was in charge of that was changed, and the new, I guess, person is more involved with the building as opposed to letting it go. So we're doing some repairs, we're cleaning up the building in the sense of violations, and these are one of the issues that we're dealing with.
Got it. Thank you.
Very well.
Let's see, does anybody, oh God, lots of hands up. Barbara?
Thank you. I am 1,000% in favor of this resolution. I would like to make a resolution, the motion that we approve this, because whenever there is a garbage enclosure, the street is cleaner. There's no smells on it, no garbage, no rats. And I think it should be a requirement of every building, frankly. I don't know why it hasn't become one in all these years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Doug?
Thank you. I just want to understand, I conceptually understand what's happening here. There's a violation, and we're saying that this is a DOT violation? I mean,
no, it's a landmark violation.
Okay, so why are you at the Transportation Committee and not at the Preservation Committee?
Oh, I was there first. They
Okay.
took me to you guys because it's on the sidewalk, and partly it's about 2 feet onto a sidewalk property line.
I see.
need to get consent from DOT first. Then I go back to landmarks for aesthetics.
Okay, so thanks for answering that. And I see your stamp there with your name on it. Are you an architect? What's your?
I'm an architect.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Mark?
Oops, sorry.
So I think we've just resolved the issue. I just wanted to say that this, not only is this building within the West End Historic District that we helped create, but it's an individual landmark. It is a Clarence True masterpiece. And so for all the reasons that have just been mentioned, it belongs both at transportation as well as at preservation. Sounds like that's in the program, so so that's great. And I guess it's a revocable consent that they're looking for from you guys, and then it would be a certificate of appropriateness that they would be looking for from the preservation committee. The only thing is,
I'm guessing that you're right about that.
That is correct, but I don't think I'm going to go to the hearing. It's going to be an as of right, so we're going to follow the guidelines.
Well, with an individual landmark, that would be unusual. The only thing that's really unusual here is that usually it goes the other way around. Preservation usually gets these applications. If they are found to be appropriate, then they come to transportation. So however it's happening, as long as it comes to both, I'm happy.
They were comfortable that I go to you first for placement And if the placement and the volume is fine, then I go back to landmarks about how it looks in it. I don't think this building is, I want to answer one more thing. This is not an individually landmark. It's part of the district, but it's, I don't have any.
Yeah, it is. So take another look. It is.
I will.
So it's just in terms of a factual question, it looks like these are, they may be encroaching on the public way, but it looks like they're sort of cheek to gel with a knee wall from a neighboring building, such that you wouldn't be impeding pedestrian traffic or crossing there. Am I reading that photograph correctly?
That is correct. I could show you a plan to show where we're placing it. So it's being placed right here, where my red box is. I'll
And
show
within
you.
the knee wall of the staircase of the next door building.
Correct. It's going to be
Okay.
like an inch or two away from it, but yes, in theory, it's up against it.
So you're not impeding a pedestrian way. So I
Correct.
would. So then, if there is a resolution from Barbara, I would support it, even though I'm not on the committee.
Thanks, Mark. Any other hands? Let's see. There is a resolution then on the floor to
Call the
support.
question.
Second,
Well, second, yeah, second.
Okay, great. All those committee members first in favor.
can we see each other on this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
can we
you
remove
stop
that
the
from the
sh-
screen
the
if you
share?
don't mind?
Oh, I'll stop the sharing.
Great. All those in favor of the resolution, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3,
Taking
4,
minutes, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4,
6,
6, 7.
7, 8. 8, 9.
Come on, Andrew.
I
you
think
can
we
do it,
have
Ben.
8 committee. Let me see. 1,
Yeah,
2.
Howard and Andrew, I don't know if there have been changes to the committee since the new leadership change, but I'm following
There's
your
8
count.
of us here and all of us have our hands up.
Yeah,
great.
to my
Yeah,
knowledge,
Howard?
there hasn't been any.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so it's 8.
So that's 8. So that would leave no committee members opposed. So let's lower those hands. And now let's get non-committee board members in favor. 1.
That's it.
I guess Mark is the only one who's in that category. So that's 1. And there are 2?
Oh,
I only saw Mark as a non-committee board member. That's it. Okay. Thank you all. And let's try to move on to number 3, which is 64th and West End. And that's all about curbs and sidewalk reconstruction updates. As I said, I believe they were worried about whether this was a historic district. It is not. I don't know, Jesse, do you know if in advance of any of this work, they're going to come to us and show us what they intend to do, or they're just going to do it?
I could ask them, but part of the issue is that we're running out of time. I did request for them to extend the commenting period, and they haven't responded. So that's part of the issue.
And when is the time limit over? Do you know?
I could check. Give me a second.
It says non-standard pedestrian ramp upgrades, including curbs and sidewalk reconstruction. I think we have to know what we're talking about before we can approve something.
If I could take
Why I
it.
suggested we table it to the next meeting and see if we can get something substantive to look at.
We may miss our opportunity time-wise, but you know, I don't know how we can vote on something if we don't know what we're talking about.
Agreed.
I agree. If I could take an educated guess, because I'm in the neighborhood often, 64th and West End Avenue, or at least most of West End in the 60s is under construction. So I'm guessing maybe this is a preemptive petition to, once the construction's over, to like immediately start work on bringing things back to normal. If I had to take an educated guess.
It's 30 days from September 14th. And
Well,
I put the plans on the drive.
That's Friday,
Yeah, that's Friday.
Thursday, actually.
If I may, if
Yes,
it's
Mark.
30 days from September 14th, then you're not going to get this through full board either way.
That's correct.
I
So
move
you might as well put it on
forward.
for next month and do a post hoc.
You know, if we learn what we need to learn, we could possibly, no, even to meet before steering would not work. It would still be beyond the time limit. So I don't see how we can vote on this.
30 days is an awfully short period of time for a community board review.
I did ask for an extension. They looked at it because I got confirmation, but no response.
I don't see how we can vote on this. Let's go to old business. Anybody with any old business?
Andrew, did you have to make some sort of disposition of this number 3? I mean, officially remove it from the agenda or table it indefinitely or dismiss it?
I don't think we have to do anything. We'll just, if it comes up again, we'll put it on our next agenda.
Okay.
Mark.
Whatever we would do, we would run out of time with full board if that's the time limit of this thing. So
You might want to write a letter and say that it wasn't that we disregarded this, it's just that we didn't get enough time and they didn't give it to us in time.
and not nearly enough specifics.
Yeah, because we don't have the information.
Right.
Yeah,
So I
we
would
should
do
write
what
a letter.
Barbara-
I think
I would do what Barbara said, and I would also make sure that the minutes say the same thing.
absolutely.
Exactly, right.
Yep. So it's not really old business, but I wanted to offer thanks to Andrew Albert because I referred a letter from a constituent to him. Believe it or not, there was a person on her way to surgery at Sloan Kettering who, with her son, who went by Accessoride, and the Accessoride driver was verbally abusive to her throughout the trip and then sprayed her with water when she got out of the car. I don't know what was in his mucilix that morning, but anyway, I brought this to Andrew's attention because I always pester him with these kinds of things. And he actually managed to figure out who the driver is. The driver has been suspended pending review. The nice ladies in 736 West End Avenue now have Andrew as their hero, and I think we all do too. So anyway, a big thank you to Andrew for
Thank
taking
you,
care of
Andrew.
that.
No, it's my pleasure, not my pleasure, but this is what you have to do when you don't treat the public the right way. This is outrageous that this person is in public service. Jay, is your hand up?
I was just going to say, I agree it sounds outrageous, but I never like to hear the phrase suspended pending review. I'd rather hear review, a finding, and then a suspension. I happen to be a firm believer in due process. I don't like plenary suspensions. Anyway, that's my comment.
Doug?
So this is actually, you said old business, is sort of new business, but and by the way, just to respond to what Jay just said, I'm not an attorney and Jay is, but it seems to me that if somebody in the public is being, accused of a dangerous act, that maybe it's better to suspend them only to protect the safety in case they actually did what they were accused of doing. If it was a lesser charge, maybe, just my thought, if this person is actively abusing people, need to stop them right away. And hopefully that review will be very timely for everybody's fairness.
Yeah.
No, the reason why I raised my hand is because I had an interesting experience today. I took the M57 crosstown, and first of all, a lot of people got on the bus the wrong way to avoid paying a fare. And I decided not to be too shy and said, "Oh, you must be mistaken. You have to pay your fare at the front." And I said it very loudly and embarrassed about 6 or 7 people. And about 4 or 5 of them paid. And then about 3 or 4 other people got on the next stop. And so that's just very frustrating to see all this fare evasion while we're talking about congestion pricing and raising money. It's just really, demoralizing for a lot of us who are paying our fare. But that's not really the point. The bus was so incredibly crowded, and I had some small talk with a rider who actually lives in the neighborhood, and we got to talking about the community board and about the bus lines, and she asked me a question which I promised to ask tonight. And specifically, this is one for Andrew and maybe anyone else who knows about it. With all of the development that's been happening on Riverside South, the only bus lines that are there are the M66, the M57, and maybe one other, Andrew. And the question that was asked to me is the DOT looking carefully, I mean, this is a city planning issue, at all the hundreds or thousands of more people living there? And, the service seems to be, at least they were complaining that the service was very limited, maybe evidence of the fact that the bus was packed like I've never seen it. So anyway, as the population grows in this area of West End and Riverside Boulevard, are there any plans for increasing the frequency of the bus service or any other lines or anything else we know?
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be DOT, that would be the MTA, but
I meant MTA. I misspoke. Sorry.
Sure. Ridership is reviewed periodically. I can certainly ask that those routes that serve that large development and developing community be looked at. Ridership is up, which is great on all forms of transportation. Your observation was not a fluke. 1 in 3 bus riders is not paying. The M57, was the rear door open because somebody was leaving, or was it all the way open? Because their bus operators are not supposed to open rear doors now unless it's an SBS and you have Omni payment.
Somebody was leaving and people snuck in. Yeah,
I was afraid of that. No, it's a terrible problem. It doesn't have anything to do with congestion pricing. That's the capital fund. This is operating. But yes, this is a real problem. There is a fare evasion task force looking at all kinds of things, new subway entry gates and all kinds of things, and as well as buses and as well as toll evasion. People are disguising their license plates to be tolls. I mean, it's crazy now.
Yeah. And my last very quick question, because I promised this resident in our neighborhood I would ask you this question. I did not know the answer. She said on 66th and Columbus Avenue, where the M11 and the M7 southbound stop, she asked, why are they 2 different stops where in other bus stops north and south, the M11 and the M7 are the same stop? Why are they 2 different stops is what she asked. And I didn't have any idea why.
This is at 72nd Street?
No, 60.
That's 66.
Oh, yeah.
There's one that's right by the Tucker Square, and there's one
sure.
that goes through the bow tie.
Right.
That's
the 11
because
and
one of the
7
buses is turning and one is remaining straight on down 9th Avenue. So that's why.
Oh, right. Oh, I see. Right. Because it's going, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Sure.
Elizabeth and then Ken.
Yeah, really quickly, I wanted to add this for new business for a future meeting. I know we talked about it, at least it wasn't at steering at a past meeting over the last month. The issue with the carriage horses in Central Park, and there has been some movement on that, I think, through the city council, and potentially something where CB7 really needs to weigh in. Barbara, I think you're still on the call. I know you are I think you're still the chair of the Parks and Environment Committee. I know you're going to be a co-secretary, but I would really like to have a discussion of that, given the potential for electric carriages to be coming through. And if we could put that on the agenda for a future joint meeting between P&E and transportation, it'd be great. Thanks.
We can't do it this month. It would have to be in November, and you'll have to speak to Natasha about it, because you're right.
I will be speaking to Natasha about it, but I'm here to talk to as a member of the Transportation Committee, to talk to the Transportation Committee members to make sure we can make sure that it's on the agenda for November. for some sort of joint committee conversation.
Yeah, sure. It would be best if you just, emailed everybody involved.
We're in new business now, so I'm doing it for new business. Thanks,
And
everyone.
Elizabeth, if you could add me to that email, because I'm partially at fault for not putting it on this month's agenda. It's something that's very
All
timely.
good. I know I mentioned it last time, but really appreciate it. Thank you.
Ken,
Yeah, yes, I look forward to that discussion also. Just a question for Andrew. When the MTA looks at adding new bus lines, do they just look at crowding on existing buses, or do they look at new development and what the potential demand is for new different
Oh,
bus
they
lines,
look
et
at
cetera?
developments, what's planned, whether it's likely to increase bus usage. Oh, they look at all of those things.
Okay,
They've got planners that do these things.
good.
And I will certainly mention the issue to the bus planning team. I'll be seeing them this month.
Andrew, I read that non-payment of fares on buses was approaching 50%. That's 50. Whether it's 50% or 33%, it's unacceptably high. What is the MTA doing to address this problem?
They've got a fare evasion task force that is looking into all kinds of things. When everybody is using Omni, and all door boarding will take place to speed the boarding process. And if you don't tap in the rear, which folks who don't want to pay won't be tapping, I'm guessing that either an alarm will go off or there will be teams that will inspect payment devices, because once you've got a device set for Omni or you're using an Omni card, it's easy to check to see when your last payment was. And then there will be, fines and other penalties. The estimated loss of fare evasion for the year 2022 is $550 million. You know how much service you can provide with that money?
Yeah, and I've read that the bus evasion is higher than the subway, but
It is.
maybe
Subway's
I read
like
the
1
subway
in
more.
5 or 1 in 6. Buses, I was told, is 1 in 3.
Because it's rare that I ride the subway and don't see anyone jumping the turnstiles.
I can't take a trip anymore, Howard, without seeing multiple incidents of fare evasion. I yell sometimes at people, you want to see service cuts? Keep doing that.
I put up my hand.
Me too.
Ken. Barbara and then Ken.
Okay,
Thank you.
but
Two fast questions. One is, when is the Omni going to work with the senior card?
It already has started. It's happening big time in October and November. You should be, if you're a reduced fare customer of MetroCard now, you should be getting notification about the availability on Omni.
Via mail, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, great.
or next time you try to refill or something, you'll get a message saying, would you like Omni instead, or something.
Oh,
like
okay. I have not gotten that. And I just want to also mention that the M86 the other day, going and coming, the driver left the back door wide open and a lot of people got on.
That is an SBS route. The drivers can leave those rear door opens because those are all door boarding routes.
Oh, well, of course.
It's the non-SBS buses that should not be opening the rear door except when people
Sorry, and
leave.
it wasn't the 86 either. It was the 79, the M79.
Same thing.
It is?
It's an SBS.
Oh, for some reason, I didn't think I was on that kind of bus. I don't know. Sorry. Okay.
Didn't you pay prior to boarding it?
I always get my little slip of paper. Always. Are you kidding?
Okay, then you know it's an SBS if you paid before boarding.
Right.
Or you can use the Omni swipe that's in the back of the bus too for those SBS.
Yeah, they're at every
Which
door
are
on
really
those.
good. Really
This
good.
one was not working for some reason. I remember it had a sign slash across it. Don't use this. Go to the front.
There are several Omni machines that are not working. I've reported them, but the bus operator does not expect you to pay if the machine was not working.
And you can use a regular credit card now, right? Too on that?
You can, as long as it has that little tap symbol on it. Yep.
That's amazing. Wow.
And with Omni or what you just described, you don't have to buy a weekly ticket. If you ride 12 times, the 13th through whatever until the following Sunday is free. It's like you bought a weekly ticket without laying out the cash in front.
It's great. Great.
Ken?
Yeah, Andrew, when I was speaking with candidates for state office earlier this year, there was a surprising amount of sentiment for free bus service. And I was just wondering what your view of what the financial hit that might be, or whether it's worth it, because when you have potentially up to half people not obeying a law, maybe you need to look at the law, and maybe
When you say free bus service, you're referring to bus and subway or just bus?
Just bus. There were some who were in favor of free transit, and but there was a lot of sentiment for making the buses free, and partially just to make them run faster, because then you don't have to, people just get on and off. It's much quicker.
Well, I can answer that in several ways. Were they suggesting that the state will pick up the tab for those folks?
There wasn't, they were just suggesting that it be free and that we find other revenue
Well, that would be a
sources.
major loss to the MTA, which would mean more frequent and higher fare hikes for the rest of the system. There are free bus subway transfers now. I don't know how that would work if you didn't pay for the bus on certain intersecting routes.
You still get a transfer.
And I think it's probably a bad idea, because I think there would be the sentiment that if I don't have to pay for the bus, why should I pay for the subway? I think it would be a never-ending thing. There would be huge financial losses. For some reason, the MTA is the only transit, well, it's not the only, but it's the transit system in the entire country that relies most on fare box revenue. Others have state subsidies, all kinds of other subsidies. We do not. There will be a big push for state subsidies when the legislature convenes in January. I can assure you of that. But if somebody has to pick up the tab, there is no free ride, as the saying goes.
You pay for it with registrations on bicycles.
Or by charging for free car storage. There was an op-ed in the Daily News a couple years back that talked about that. How you can have totally free mass transit if you charge $6 a day for parking on the street. Totally free, no fares whatsoever.
$6 a day is a bargain.
It is a bargain.
Yeah, it is a bargain.
So we have to get our elected officials to look at that op-ed and take it seriously.
Yeah, I'd like to see more bus service, not less. And free buses, I'm afraid we'd see service cuts all over the place if nobody picked up the tab. So if these are state officials, Ken, that you said were running for something in the state, I've got to assume that they're
State Senate and Assembly.
Well, then they've got to, in the back of their minds, they're saying the state would pick up those losses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not in favor of cutting service.
I
I think when people are running for office, they think about the benefits and not the costs. They're very incented to do that when they're running for office.
Yeah. And one last thing I would say is that because weekend ridership is so high on the subway system, and that's when majority of the work is taking place, nights and weekends, President Davey is talking about increasing service on weekends to make it an easier thing. The tourism must have really come back. I've helped tourists from Ontario, Europe, and the Midwest in the last 5 days with all kinds of directions, and they were grateful. So it's great to see tourism coming back to New York.
Anything else? Is that it? I think we're all done.
Oh, I just wanted to say that Ms. Shepper, who was in the Q&A, is the person who asked the questions, and I was just so excited that she actually attended. She's here. I encourage her to come back, and I don't know if she had anything she wanted to say, but I think we answered all of her questions. And actually, one of the questions I forgot to ask was the Omni for reduced fares for seniors, et cetera. So
okay, we've already discussed that. So anything else?
I
Okay,
think that's,
thank you very much.
Wait, could I just wait up? Oh, is it too late?
Nope.
Go ahead.
Barbara, what's up?
I wanted to comment on what Ken said, because when I was in Auckland, New Zealand, I was incredibly impressed with their transportation system. You pay for transportation, but in an essential business district, you do not. The transportation is free. You hop on a bus, you hop off, and as a result, there is no congestion there whatsoever. The buses are absolutely spotless. They have places to put your suitcases if you happen to be heading towards the airport. They're clean, plush seats, with fabric. It is something that warrants looking into, if not throughout the city, which I understand it would be a tremendous hardship. But in the central business district, it's something to consider. That's all. Thank you.
thank you.
Actually, you could add that to the MTA list of capital priorities.
I'm
Okay,
sure New
right.
Zealand subsidizes really well.
Yes.
They
Okay,
might.
anything else?
There's no
I think that's
people
it.
in New Zealand. It's easy.
Yes. Everyone have a good night. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye.
Good night, everyone.